God, oh my goodness, Nick. This is where I really, oh my word. Look at the fish down there. That is the mother lode of all mother lodes of smallmouth bass. Look at the size of this thing. Good night. They're making short work of the OG. Golly. Look at that thing. Beautiful. There's nothing better than just getting throttled on a crank. Let's see if we can do that again. Just send it out, wind it back in. Just sitting off the break, there's a big flat up here that a lot of fish will visit when the sun comes out and temperatures get warm, but we're just kind of milling down the edge of this, just winding this little crank around. This is a tiny, the OG Tiny. This is the 7. This is a little bit deeper version. I have the boat sitting in 8 feet right here, throwing up on this break, but the cool thing about this little crank is it is balsa, but I can stop it and almost kind of suspend it a little bit. That bait doesn't rise super fast like a typical balsa bait would do. So you can kind of stop it. You can see that bait right there. It does rise, but it's a very slow rise. So if I'm going down the bank and I see some fish, I'm scoping around, I can definitely pause that bait and it's gonna linger in the strike zone for a good bit, as opposed to just floating up like a bobber. Got him. Oh, I saw him coming up. Came up for it. Into the boat you go. That's the one nice thing about those hybrid trebles too. They're a pretty solid hook. You can kind of make quick work of them. Look at that, pretty smallmouth. It's so gold, it looks like a little goldfish. That's a lot of life right there. I'm gonna see if I can't hit them, wind through them here a little bit. See my crank going right over the top, chasing it, but they like it hitting the bottom. Oh, I got one following me hard. Definitely multiples there. Little OG. That's a pretty bait. I'm around some rock in here, so, and this is pretty clear water in this particular lake, and this just, to me, this color represents a pretty good crawfish, I would say. I do a fair bit of diving and messing around with crayfish when I'm down there rolling rocks around and just feeding crayfish to smallmouths. They're so curious. They love to just follow you when I'm diving, and that orange belly, brown back, that just kind of that brown color is a pretty good representation from what I've seen around here in this neck of the woods. It's a pretty good color match. And the smallmouths love eating crayfish, so. Jeez, did he ever stomp it? Still kind of lively. Got both hooks on that one. Definitely an overlooked way to catch smallmouth, I would say, in the spring. It's a little crank like that. so many fish get caught and accustomed to those jerk baits. And I mean, granted, they have their time and place, no doubt, don't get me wrong. Day in and day out, that's probably the best way to go in the spring, throwing jerk baits for smallmouth. It doesn't take long though for those fish to get worked over on a jerk bait, swim bait, something of that nature. And then, you know, you have a little crank that comes wiggling through, especially if you get around that rock and you bump into some of that rock. It's just something, it just moves so much differently than any of those other baits. We're gonna let that little crank come down. Oh, little crank comes down, hits a rock. And the fish, then you lose them. And another one grabs it. Oh my gosh, there's a huge pile of them here. This is insane. He's just, I mean, these are kind of the moments where you sort of just kind of gotta giggle. I had one on, lost him, and then his buddy just came up and teed off on it. So we'll take that. And they're like getting it too. This setup is actually a pretty heavy setup. I had actually been square billing with this yesterday, throwing the Rocco around in the river, which has much dirtier, darker water, and this is outfitted with 20-pound. This is much heavier than it needs to be, but it's 20-pound fluoro, the advanced fluoro on a cranking rod. This is like a 7.3, 7.4 moderate action crank. This is actually a, I think this is the G-Man, the Meta series. I will say I do like it. It feels solid so far. I've not fished it a whole lot, but it does feel nice. I like it. Smallmouths are so darn curious. It's one of those deals where you don't have to just grind. I don't think you just always have to be just grinding rock all the time, as you know, for you to entice a bite. But if you just kind of tick 1 or 2 rocks on your way in on your cast, that's really all it takes, is just a couple deflections for them to go. That one absolutely train wrecked it. But for the most part, golly, for the most part, this bait is up off bottom. It's not just grinding all the way back to the boat. Look at that. Probably the funnest little crank smallmouth bite I will get to experience this year, in all honesty. We just don't have a whole lot of places around here where we can just catch smallmouths at will on a crankbait. So it's kind of a treat to be able to do this. I'm gonna take full advantage of it. That stop starting too is, just let it sit there for a quick second and keep it moving. Just hesitate the bait. I mean, I'm barely touching rock. Like, I'll hit rock for the first, like right there, tick, tick. Then it kind of falls off that edge. Falls off that edge, and they get it as soon as it comes off that edge. Oh, is he jumping? My goodness, he is jumping. Coming up again. Pretty little smallmouth. Water's slowly warming. Sun is coming out a little bit. Sometimes those rocks are the first thing to start warming up. I've seen a lot of crayfish make their homes in big rock piles like this in the wintertime. And I can only imagine that they disperse when the water starts getting warmer. That also might be a reason these smallmouth hanging around these rock piles can have a lot of food. Sometimes crayfish will get under one big boulder and there'll be like 100 of them in one small area. You flip the boulder over and they just fly out of there. It's a very natural thing for crayfish. If he gets spooked, he'll bump and he'll shoot out of those rocks. And so what I like to do with this is just, I'll hit a rock and I'll bump it, stop it, start it, you know, kind of twitch my rod a little bit. Nothing crazy, but when a crayfish is scooting along, that's kind of the natural way that they move. They just kind of stop and start and try and hide and tuck back in those rocks. So when that dives back in down to the bottom, it looks pretty natural, like a crayfish. A lot of life down here. Something going on here. I think this is somewhere where we're gonna get bit. Oh, we missed it. Got it. Right at the boat here. Great big one. Great big one. Jeepers creepers. That's a nice one. Boy, he's got a mouth full of OG, doesn't he? Wow. I kind of had a feeling we were going to get bit here. Look at the size of this guy. Come here. Come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. Come here, little guy. That's a football. Oh, one-eyed Jack there. Look at that. I think they like it. So as opposed to throwing a jerkbait, or, I mean, some people don't even like throwing jerkbaits, but it's a good alternative to a jerkbait or hair jig or swim bait or something of that nature. Just something, if you get around a little rock, you can just bump it off rock, stop it, start it. That's the biggest thing, is just kind of finding those little sweet spots for a particular bait such as this.